In the ER, the doctor whispered, "You're not the emergency." I looked up and saw her bracelet. The fluorescent lights were too bright for the hour, bleaching everyone's faces into the same tired color, and the smell of sanitizer clung to the back of my throat like I'd swallowed it. I was standing at the edge of the nurse's station, clutching my phone so hard it creaked, trying to listen over the beeping monitors and a kid crying somewhere down the hall. The doctor leaned in like he didn't want the whole room to hear, voice low, almost kind. "You're not the emergency," he whispered, and his eyes flicked past my shoulder toward the curtained bays. It didn't make sense at first. I'd come because they called me, because they said his name, because the receptionist had asked, "Are you his partner?" And I'd said yes without hesitation, like the word still meant what it used to. I followed the doctor's glance before I could stop myself. And that's when I saw it. Her wrist resting on the edge of a gurney blanket, fingers curled around a paper cup like she'd been holding on for dear life. On her arm was a bracelet I recognized in the brutal, instant way. You recognize something you've stared at alone in your house at 2 a.m., trying to convince yourself you're being dramatic. A thin gold chain with a small green stone set in the middle. A tiny chip on the clasp like someone had dropped it once and pretended it didn't matter. My vision narrowed. The rest of the ER turned muffled, like I'd gone underwater. And somewhere behind the curtain, I heard his voice, his actual voice, soft and worried, not the annoyed "I'm busy" tone he'd been using with me for months. It was a Tuesday night when they called. I remember because Tuesdays were my long shift days, the ones where my scrubs smell like hospital no matter how many times I wash them, and my brain feels like it's been rubbed raw by other people's emergencies. We've been together 5 years, married for 3. His name is Matt. I'm Nadia. We're not the glamorous couple people imagine when they think of betrayal stories. We're the boring couple in a small rental with mismatched mugs and a calendar on the fridge. He works in logistics. I'm an ER nurse, which is its own special kind of irony now that I think about it, because I've spent years watching strangers lie to their partners in triage, watching people try to keep secrets while monitors beep like punctuation. I always told myself I'd know if it happened to me. I always told myself I'd see it coming. I didn't. The call came at 10:47 p.m. Unknown number. I answered because of habit. Because I answer calls the way you do, when you've learned bad news can show up wearing any area code. A woman on the other end said, "Hi, is this Nadia?" And my stomach tightened before she even said the hospital name. "We're calling from Riverside Emergency," she said. "Matt Collins was brought in. We just need to confirm. Are you his emergency contact?" I remember staring at the staff room wall, at a poster about hand hygiene, feeling the air go thin. "What happened?" I asked. There was a pause, the kind where someone is deciding how much they're allowed to say. "He's stable," she said quickly. "We just need you to come in." Stable, come in. That combination makes your heart do something ugly, even if you know better. I left my shift like I was running from a fire. I barely remember changing out of my scrubs. I drove with both hands locked on the wheel, jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached, repeating his name in my head like it could keep him alive. The whole way there, I was trying to stitch together a story that made sense. Car accident, maybe. Workplace injury. Something random. I kept thinking about the last text he'd sent me. Running late. Don't wait up. That was it. No explanation. No love you. I'd stared at it at the time, tired and annoyed. But I'd also been relieved because I could shower and collapse without making conversation. Now that text felt like a stone in my pocket. When I got to the ER, the waiting room was crowded and loud. The triage nurse asked for his date of birth and I rattled it off without thinking because that's what married people do. They know the stupid details. They asked me to sit. I sat. My leg bounced so hard the chair squeaked. My palms were sweaty. My mouth tasted like copper. Then they called me back. Not to his bed, not with the usual family member to bedside vibe. They called me to the nurse's station like I was being consulted. That's when the doctor leaned in and whispered, "You're not the emergency." I must have looked blank, because he softened his tone. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I think you were contacted because your number is on file, but the primary patient is someone else. Matt is here with her." With her. The word landed like a slap. Not with another patient. Not with a coworker. With her, like there was a known person, a private category in his life that I didn't belong to. I turned, and I saw the bracelet. I didn't always know about the bracelet. That's the part that makes me feel stupid, even though I'm trying not to talk about myself like that. 3 weeks earlier, I'd found a little velvet jewelry pouch in the center console of his car. I was looking for the parking pass because he'd asked me to grab it, and I felt the pouch under receipts and gum wrappers. Inside was that bracelet. Gold chain, green stone, delicate. Not my style, not my size, not something I'd ever bought. When I showed him, he barely glanced at it. "Oh," he said too quickly. "That's Jess's." "Jess?" I asked. He'd never mentioned a Jess. "She works in accounts," he said, shrugging like it was nothing. "She left it in my car after we went to lunch with the team. I was going to give it back." "Why is it in a pouch?" I asked, because it was such a small detail, but it bothered me. Like someone had been careful with it. He sighed like I was exhausting. "Because she said it was expensive and she didn't want it scratched," he said. "Nadia, you're reaching." Reaching. That word has a way of making you step back from your own instincts. I handed it back because I didn't want to be the paranoid wife. I didn't want to be the woman who makes scenes. I told myself he'd return it and it would disappear from our life. It disappeared, technically. I never saw it again. Until the ER. Now it was on her wrist. The same delicate chain. The same tiny chip on the clasp. And the hand attached to it belonged to a woman sitting too close to him. Her knees pulled up, hair messy like she'd been running her fingers through it. She looked pale, like she might throw up. Matt was standing beside her, one hand on the rail of the gurney, leaning in to talk to her in that low voice I used to think belonged to me. He turned his head slightly and saw me. The expression on his face wasn't, "Thank God you're here." It wasn't relief. It was panic. Pure, naked panic that flashed across his eyes before he tried to erase it. "Nadia," he said, and the way he said my name made my skin prickle, like he was warning me not to blow up his life in public. I didn't move right away. My feet felt glued to the floor. The doctor stepped back like he wanted no part of this. The woman looked up too, eyes glassy. And when she saw me, she looked away fast, like she'd been caught doing something she'd convinced herself was justified. I walked closer because my body needed the truth to be real, not imagined. The closer I got, the clearer the bracelet became. I could have reached out and touched it. I could have pointed at the chip and said, "I know you." "What is this?" I asked. My voice came out steady, which didn't match the shaking in my hands. My training kicked in, calm voice, controlled face. Don't escalate in a medical setting. It felt disgusting to be professional in my own betrayal. Matt swallowed. "It's not," he started. The woman made a small sound like she was in pain, and he instantly turned toward her. Instantly. Like her discomfort mattered more than my presence. That did something to me. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rage like in movies. It was this quiet snap in my chest where a piece of hope just stopped trying. I looked at the woman. "Are you Jess?" I asked. Her eyes flicked up. She hesitated just long enough to answer without words. Matt's jaw tightened. "Nadia, can we not do this here?" he said under his breath. "Here is the only place I have the full story," I said. My voice shook on the last word. "Because at home you tell me I'm reaching." The doctor cleared his throat gently, like he was trying to remind us we were in an ER. "Ma'am," he said, "we need to continue treatment. If you're not the designated contact—" "I'm his wife," I said automatically, and then I hated the way it sounded. Like a badge. Like a plea. Matt flinched. The woman's face tightened. And in that tiny triangle of reactions, I understood what had happened without anyone needing to spell it out. He'd put my number down because it was easy, because he knows it by heart, because he didn't want her partner called if she had one, because he didn't want his secret to have consequences until he could manage them. The woman, Jess, shifted, wincing, and the nurse adjusted her IV. My brain caught on a clinical detail. She wasn't dying. She was stable. Maybe dehydration, maybe a panic attack, maybe something minor that still gets you an ER bed when you have someone advocating for you. Matt was the advocate. Matt was the hand on the rail. I looked at him and my throat burned. "You're checked in as her contact," I said softly. "And they called me." He opened his mouth like he was going to deny it, then stopped, because denying it would be pointless with me standing in a hospital, literally summoned by his lie. "I didn't know who else to put," he said, and I almost laughed because it was such a pathetic sentence. Like he'd stumbled into this by accident. Like there weren't 100 choices before that moment. Jess finally spoke, voice small. "I'm sorry," she said, not looking at me. It didn't soothe anything. It made it worse, because it sounded like she'd rehearsed it, like she'd been sorry before and kept going anyway. Matt stepped toward me slightly, lowering his voice. "Please," he said, "not here. We'll talk at home." Home. The word made my stomach twist, because home was the place where he'd been lying. Home was where he'd come in, smelling like unfamiliar soap, and told me he'd showered at the gym. Home was where he'd fallen asleep with his phone face down on his chest, like it was a secret animal. I took a breath. The ER noise swelled around me again. Shoes squeaking, someone coughing, a monitor beeping steadily. Life continuing. "No," I said, and my voice surprised me with how clear it was. "I'm not going home with you tonight." His face tightened. "Nadia, I came because I thought you were hurt," I said, and my eyes stung, but I didn't let the tears fall. "I ran here because I'm your wife, and you're standing here holding her hand while I'm being told I'm not the emergency." His gaze flicked to Jess, then back to me. He looked trapped, like any direction he turned would cost him something. Good. Let it cost him something. I stepped back. "Change your emergency contact," I said quietly, "because you don't get to use me like a safety net for whatever this is." He looked like he wanted to grab my arm. He didn't. Maybe because we were surrounded by people. Maybe because he knew I'd pull away like he was dirty. I turned and walked away before my legs could betray me. I made it to the corridor near the vending machines and leaned against the wall, breathing through my nose like I was trying not to throw up. My hands were shaking so badly my wedding ring clicked against the wall when I lifted my hand to wipe my face. A nurse I recognized, someone I've worked with on a different shift, passed by and did a double take. "Nadia?" she asked, concern already on her face. I swallowed hard. "I'm fine," I lied automatically, because that's what we do. We lie. We compartmentalize. We walk back into trauma bays with our hearts in pieces. She didn't push. She just touched my shoulder gently and kept walking, and that almost made me cry harder than anything else. I sat in my car afterward for a long time without starting it. The steering wheel was cold under my palms. My phone buzzed with a message from Matt. "Please answer. I can explain." Then another. "It's not what you think." Then another. "I love you." I stared at the words until my eyes hurt. Love isn't a text you send when you get caught. Love is what you do when you think nobody's watching. When I finally drove home, the house felt wrong, too quiet, too normal. I walked straight to the bathroom and washed my hands like I'd touched something contaminated. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the empty spot where he usually tossed his keys. I didn't pack his things. I didn't smash anything. I didn't post online or call his mother. I just opened our shared contacts list on his emergency app. Because yes, we had one. Because I'm an ER nurse and I'm paranoid about accidents. And I saw it. My name, still listed as his primary contact. He'd never changed it. He just used my number for her. It felt like the purest form of disrespect, not just cheating, using me as infrastructure for his lies. He came home around 3 a.m., moving quietly like a teenager sneaking in. I heard the door and didn't move. He stepped into the bedroom, eyes tired and red. "Nadia," he whispered. I sat up slowly. "Don't," I said, and my voice was hoarse. "Don't start with explanations. Start with the truth. How long?" He stared at the floor. That pause told me enough before he even spoke. "A few months," he said finally. I nodded once, like my body was filing it away. "And her bracelet," I said quietly. "The one you told me was just a coworker's. That was hers the whole time." He flinched. "I didn't—" "You did," I said. "You did every time you came home and acted like I was suspicious for noticing things. You did when you let me go to work and save strangers while you built a second life." His eyes filled. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I believed he was sorry the way people are sorry when consequences arrive. I didn't believe he was sorry in a way that could rebuild trust. "I need space," I said. "You can sleep on the couch. Tomorrow you're going to find somewhere else to stay for a while." He opened his mouth, then closed it, like he was finally realizing he didn't get to control the timeline anymore. If you made it to the end, thanks for watching. And if you've ever had the truth handed to you in a place you couldn't fall apart, at work, in public, in a hospital hallway, share your story in the comments. I'm reading them, and I think it helps to know you're not alone when the moment you realize it is also the moment you have to stay standing.